Good morning, good morning, good morning, and good morning, good morning, good morning. So funny. So I was just doing RHINO Wealth and literally took RHINO Wealth to the last second. And now it's like, all right, I'm back. Everything's fine. All right, cool. Good morning. Hey, Brian. So, Brian, I've been reluctant to text you because I don't know if it's too soon, but I'm really sorry about the Atlanta Braves. And I hope I didn't jinx it. Hey, good morning, Andy. For those that don't know, Brian is from Georgia, and he is the biggest Braves fan you could ever meet. In fact, I'm sure he has a tattoo of Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, all of them. And the NL East is a division. So you have the Phillies, you have the Washington Nationals, you have the Braves, and you have the Mets. And I went to school in Philadelphia. I went to St. Joseph's University. And I can tell you, Philadelphia is a very scrappy place. They're quite mean. In fact, they're famous for throwing snowballs at Santa Claus at a Philadelphia Eagles game. They're just not nice people. Philadelphia is probably my least favorite city I've ever been to, other than like Newark or Camden. And for those people that know those cities, it's really like, I don't think you could get worse than Philadelphia. And not because of what it means. You got the Bell, Benjamin Franklin. Like, the history in Philadelphia is so rich and beautiful. But the people of Philadelphia, the majority, are like kind of like the worst people ever. But you know what makes them beautiful? That's their culture. Like, they're the worst people, but together. And that's what makes Philadelphia beautiful. So as an outsider, I hate Philadelphia. But when you talk about the city of brotherly love, in a weird way, it is still this, like, people in Philadelphia love each other. They will kill you for their brother. But you just walk around and people like throw snowballs at you and then want to fight you. And you're like, you're disgusting. Like, go away from me. The point of the story being, the Atlanta Braves are the class of baseball. They have the best young talent. They're perennially one of the best teams. And this year, they were the favorites. And they lost to their division foe, the Philadelphia Phillies. So I know that Brian would tell you, if the Braves had to lose, anyone other than the Philadelphia Phillies. So I feel that, and I'm not even a Braves fan. So so sorry, Brian. But I believe everyone now feels it. So that's, good storytelling for RHINO. All right, so let's get into it. TED, I tested again this weekend, and I still wasn't pleased. But I was more pleased than the first time, and I suspect I'll be less pleased than what it's going to be in the third time, which means it's going to constantly get better. In fact, I went into TED's coding, and instead of just the prompt engineering of it, I was able to increase the penalization score for repetitivity, decrease the score for randomness, which then isolates it more to the value of the prompt, created a very, very intense algorithm for the intent score, which is actually probably 4,500 words long, and was able to decrease the prompt overall word from 13,000 to, I believe, 9,200. Okay, so Carl gets it as well. And everyone knows this. Okay, so with TED. And we were able to increase our businesses up to 180 plus the 60 that are still part of RHINO business to get to 240. 240 businesses are going to be the starting. Actually, I probably am still going to put another 50. Let's say we get to 300 is a lot. I'm going to try. Let's say we get to 300 businesses starting in RHINO business. Okay. I have been talking to TED, so it's not like he doesn't work. It's just he's not where I want him to be. Again, I was talking to him and he's like, oh, I think you need to see a mental health professional, which actually sounds terrible. Like, and I say that because my wife is in court saying, oh, he needs to speak to a mental health professional. I'm like, yeah, because I'm not going to say it. But actually, now that I touched on it, the reason is that her and her lawyer will send me emails. I respond back. And then they tell me that my emails are too long, that they don't understand them. So I then wrote an email in sock puppet form. Hi, this is sock puppet Anthony. Maybe you could understand me now. And again, it's gamesmanship. And they're like, oh, look, he's crazy. He's talking in sock puppets. I'm like, do you know how complex it was to speak in those sock puppets? But anyway, so when I say that Ted is telling me I need to speak to a mental health professional, it brings me back to that. But the point being, he's not saying it because he's deducing that I'm crazy. He's saying it because I'm speaking on a topic that is commonplace to speak to a mental health professional. Like, for instance, if you're going through a divorce and you're venting, oh, things are so tough. Who's the best person to speak to? Is it your friend? Probably not. Is it a therapist? Probably yes. Therefore, Ted is so smart that he identifies that the content of what I'm saying, and he's understanding what would be the best solution for me. The problem is, I don't want Ted to cut off every conversation the second somebody opens up and tells them that they need to go see a mental health professional, because two things happen. One, the person's offended. You're never going to open up to someone if their number one or number two suggestion, rather than listening, rather than offering advice, is, oh, maybe you should go speak to a mental health professional. Okay, I'm never talking to you again. You're the last person I want to talk to. But secondly, it also interrupts the conversation. Do you know how difficult it is to then restart a conversation after the person told you need to go speak to a mental health professional? It makes you feel like you're crazy. Did you just call me crazy? Because I'm not crazy. So I had to go, but it's not as easy as a solution as you would think, because OpenAI, ChatGPT, has their own privacy policy in terms of conditions. It cannot allow its AI to be confused for mental health or licensed professionals, whether they be legal, mental, physical, doctors. It can't have that. So, and we don't want that, right? Like, we're not trying to do a workaround. We're not trying to say, let's go trick OpenAI, because A, OpenAI is smarter than us, and B, we want to be with them. We want to be in bed with them for life, right? Kind of like when you get married before you get a divorce paperwork 18 months later. You want to be in bed with them for life, especially if you have two kids, Anthony, stop it. No, it's just sometimes I jog every morning, I clear my head, I work. I'm really I cannot tell you how pleased and optimistic I am. The world is setting up in such a way that I already know next steps. And I've never been more optimistic. And I say that quite honestly. And it is in that honesty that you then start joking about things like, really? This is what you did? But that's a story for another day. The point being, we want to be with OpenAI for, I can't help myself, till death do us part. And that's not going to happen if we do a workaround and they find out, oh, you thought you could trick us. Well, guess what? Now you're never on the platform. So what we need to do is we need to revamp our privacy policy to say, Ted is not a licensed professional. Ted is not A, B, C, and D. Ted will take on the persona of your best friend. Ted will then speak to you from the persona of a best friend, and best friends do not tell you, and best friends are assumed not to be licensed professionals. If the conversation reaches a critical mass, then Ted will tell you to go see a licensed professional, because you are speaking deeper than a casual friend conversation, right? So once Ted knows that, the user accepts and consents to it, then Ted can speak to you. Oh, things are really tough. I understand. Have you thought about doing this? Blah, 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 blah. Yes, see why? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's now seven responses. Okay, we could still talk, but I do think you should maybe go see a therapist. I can see that this is really affecting you. In which case, a best friend should do that. Like, if I'm talking to someone that is so far beyond being able to speak or think rationally, like, again, my conversations about my divorce are quite easy. A, it stinks because I miss my children. B, I have to spend God knows how long making sure that I'm able to treat my children to get through this transition. C, what's the differences that this divorce is going to affect in my children, and I need to identify quickly enough to nurture it, accept it, and make sure that I don't conflict with it. And then D, E, and F is about like, okay, goodbye, lady, like see you later. But that's a very rational, okay, there's step 1, 2, and 3. What about the people that are not rational? Oh, you know what? If I see her again, like that stuff is crazy. And that's commonplace. That's not me. You could almost make an argument that I'm getting divorced because I'm too rational. Maybe I don't have empathy. Maybe I don't have sympathy. Maybe I grew up in a life that does not allow me to say, oh, darn, I'm sorry that your day was so tough. Do you want to know what my life looks like? And maybe that's why RHINO will succeed, right? So, there's a chair, there's a butt for every chair, so to speak. And maybe two people just shouldn't have got together, but the children are beautiful. Therefore, there is a higher plan. But that doesn't discount that 90% of people are that mother effer. If I ever see her, she's gonna. And honestly, a good friend would say to that person, you need to stop right now because you're gonna make a mistake. You need to see a therapist. So not only am I saying that I don't want Ted to make that recommendation. No, that's not it. I want Ted to make the recommendation when it's appropriate. And in the appropriate recommendation, the relationship can continue. Because even if you get a recommendation to go see a therapist, and you should see a therapist, and you don't take that recommendation, a week from now, maybe something happens where you're like, I can't believe I just did that. You know what? I actually do need to see a therapist. You know what? Ted, you were right. I need help. It doesn't, just because you don't accept a recommendation doesn't mean that the recommendation was wrong. In fact, it can still mean that it's right and that you just don't recognize it, which means at a later date, when you do recognize it, you trust that individual, whether it be Ted or whatnot, implicitly because they saw something that you didn't. Therefore, you can no longer trust your own opinion, you trust their opinion, which then becomes dangerous. But if that person's your best friend, that's a good thing. Welcome to Ted. The difficulty is everything I just said, I need to now put in coding. Like talking is different than actually test, test. So that's still occurring. In fact, I completed that yesterday. Now I got to test it today. The businesses are on our own database and server. They are being connected. We do need to go ahead and put logic that allows a certain trigger that allows this to happen and this to happen and this to happen. Okay. We're very close. We're so close that I believe that today still is a good day. Like I still think we can reach this by this evening. If it doesn't get by this evening, I don't want to say never, but I have no belief that this is going to take till next Monday. And I say that because I think I actually have a predictable behavior. If something doesn't come to fruition by Monday, Tuesday, and/or Wednesday, I then look at my team and say, you know what? Now I know that we're just rushing. Let's wait till next Monday. In which case I then share it with you. I'm telling you right now, I don't think that's this. I just don't. I do believe with a 90% certainty that this will not go later than Wednesday. But to quote a funny person that I used to work with years ago, I said to him once, he asked me a question, and I said to him once, I'm 99% certain. He goes, so then you don't know SHIT. I go, excuse me? He goes, if you knew anything, you'd be 100%. 99% means you have no idea what you're talking about. And it was in that moment that I'm like, he's absolutely right. Either you're sure or you're not. Saying you're 99% sure is just designed to like not upset the person you're talking to. Be that as it may, I'm 90% sure. But that's that. Okay. RHINO Bucks, we purchased close to $585 today, which was about 18% more than we've guided. I think we'll likely be towards the $500 to $700 a day rather than just the $5. I believe RHINO was 179, got up to 184. And it's funny because it was 184.5, then we bought more and it went to 183.90. So there is a certain variance, which means the next purchase is probably going to put it to 185, 186. So that's fine. And RHINO is going to be, And I'm almost thinking our daily emails, if I'll just put a chart of Rhino in it, really to drum up the excitement. Hey, 179, hey, 184, hey, 190, hey, 195, hey, 2, hey, 205. You ever going to get in? Because I do believe that there is a certain amount of excitement you can build. And it's not to financially engineer, but it's also to financially assist. The difference being you can financially engineer an outcome and then it crashes because you have nothing to support it. If we have no business and we're just like, all right, let's see how many people, how many suckers we could get to buy before it collapses, we could probably keep that game going for a long time because Rhino's only what, 115, 120,000. If we get it to 1 million, what does that mean? We could run this thing up 10 times where it is and still be completely criminals, right? Like if we're just engineering it. Financially assisting is different because if you can create excitement that brings attention in, but at the same time, you can support that excitement with the invention and the launch of the most revolutionary item. Well, now, oh, I had no idea what TED was. I got in because this thing goes up every day, but I'm happy I'm here because now I know why everyone's excited. That's a sentence that we want. The difference being the outcome's not revealed until the end. So there is a certain level of ethics and morality that go into ever doing any type of excitement because I don't want to excite people unless I know I can deliver. Now, of course, I believe we'll deliver, but I'm also speaking to people that have been a part of this since day one. We all understand the construct of it. The difference between me saying that to you and then me doing marketing based on the excitement of a stock going up is that those people are going to conceivably get in because the excitement of the stock, which means they're just going to learn about Rhino, which means they're not coming in with this implicit confidence or a tolerance if things go wrong. Therefore, to those people, we have to make sure that we are beyond reproach, that we are certain that we can deliver, and then we can actually be aggressive. Hey, listen, you didn't get in at 180, it's now sitting at 2. Now TED's out there, it's already making sales, let's go. I will travel to every town. I will walk to every place. Hey. In fact, this morning during my jog, as I was jogging outside the community, there's this girl and she does jogging too. And I haven't seen her in a while. And hello, because I used to always walk my son to school and she was always walking by at that exact time. So, I know who she is and she knows me as, the married guy with the kid. So I said to her, I go, there's this amazing park down there and I'm going there. If you want to join, you can. I'm going to leave my headset in. We don't need to have conversation. But if you've never seen it, it's the best place. Like you go through trails and then there's this great park. She's like, oh my God, I would love that. Let me go. So as we're walking, of course, she wants to talk my ear off, which is fine. I get it. But at this stage of my life, I don't even want to talk to anyone. Unless you're a part of RHINO or you're my children, I don't actually want to talk to you. And if that sounds weird, rude, it is what it is. But a girl talking to me is like the last thing I want. But I invited her, so as she's talking to me, she's like, so what do you do? I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So I started talking about TED, and during the entire conversation, you could see her shifting from like, I'm trying to flirt with this guy to, oh my God, that's amazing. And it was quite cool seeing the confluence of it, because then you went from like the guy that she was trying to flirt to the guy that like, oh yeah, so here's my number. And I only took it because I'm going to send her TED, right? Like this is a TED related thing. The point of the story being, upon just sharing in a very casual sense of what TED is, she's like, that's amazing. Like, that's amazing. And that's not the first time I've heard it. In fact, of the 100 times I've shared TED to an outsider, not to RHINO, because we all are very primed in what it is and the comfort level of offering advice, suggestion, being critical, being compliment. Like that's part of this. Like this is our board meeting. I don't need people yesing me. Outside world knows nothing about nothing. So when they hear the idea, they're a really great sample set of, is the idea a good idea? Because they have no loyalty to the idea. They're not invested, they've never heard of it before, and they're comparing it against the world. And without fail, every single person I've ever spoken to loves it. Now you can say, well, Ant, Maybe they just love you. Well, I don't think there's a difference. And I'm not saying that to be funny. I think if I was this large human being that doesn't take care of himself, has yellow teeth, has hair coming out of his ears, that doesn't know how to speak well, that says trite remarks to girls and guys alike, that speaks politics as if he's in a locker room, talks about women like he's in a locker room, and has zero care for self-worth or the worth around them, but I had the cure for cancer, I think people would elect to have cancer, right? And that's a silly statement. I probably should take that back. But the point being, they would really have to, like, they would take the medication despite me, not because of me. And then vice versa, right? If you're the most likable person in the world, people will gravitate towards you and then look to justify it within what they gravitated towards. Like, for instance, if I was selling cookies for $10 a piece and the cookies were quite average, you're like, Aunt, really? $10 cookies? That's so expensive. But I like that guy. He goes out there with his kids. They're all selling cookies. I think it goes to like their school because he has them in private schools. You know what? I don't even like cookies. In fact, I love $10, but I will still spend $10 on the cookie because I want to be supportive of that human being. Now, when you take both and put it together, I think that is something that changes the world. I think that's Elon Musk. I think that's Steve Jobs. I think that's Marcus Aurelius. I think that's Julius Caesar. I think that's Hatshepsut VII, right? Like, I think that's that. And of course, Anthony, you just put yourself in the sentence with those people. I guess I did, right? But I'm simply saying the skill sets, when they converge, that's the outcome. So and I'm not saying that's me, but I'm saying I could see similarities that don't disprove it, right? It doesn't mean it proves it, but doesn't disprove it. And the point being, whether someone is receptive to TED because they're receptive to me, or they're receptive to TED because they're receptive to TED, when you could start looking at the world and instead of seeing people as yes and no's, you can see them as yes for reason A and yes for reason B, the marketing side becomes quite easy. Like, that's the part that you're quite fond of. So I'll tell you what I told my team. And I said it to my team yesterday, guys, do not kill yourselves to get this out tomorrow. Right now, we're talking to people that like us. We're talking to our evangelists. We're talking to our loyalists. We're talking to RHINO board and owners and partners and members. And everyone in RHINO understands we want it done properly, even if it means it's a day late, a week late, 2 weeks late, whatever the case may be, because the future is not, oh, we've got to get this shirt out before it's no longer cool. What we're doing is going to last quite some time, ideally. And I said to them, for that reason, we don't do marketing. We've talked about marketing many times. When you see me buying 500 worth of RHINO a day, does that mean that we don't have funds that we can earmark towards marketing? No, it's actually quite the opposite. But still, I'd rather return that money to shareholders than do marketing. The reason being, once you market, you better know what you're doing. You better have something that's good. And not only because you're going to upset the people if it's not good, but it's those people that are then going to be speaking to you on the premise of what you market to them for. You told me this thing was great. And guess what? It's not great. Why isn't it great? You know how difficult it is to have that conversation rather than say if Brian emails me and says, Ant, you said this was going to happen. It didn't happen yet. Can you talk to me about it? Because Brian or Becky or Andy or anyone would say, all right, I'm in it for the long term. I know where we've been. I know where we're going. I have a certain confidence in this. Therefore, I don't need to bite your head off because the platform that I'm speaking from is not an observation over a marketing ad. The platform I'm speaking of is from an observation over a 3-4 year span. Therefore, the answers I want from you aren't meant to be immediately gratifying because the time frame I'm with you and the time frame I plan to be on with you disqualifies the simple, oh yeah, I forgot to press A, right? But once you do marketing, that's no longer a luxury. Once you do marketing, the people that got in because of your marketing message. If you're unable to please them in that moment, they're not friendly. They look at you and say, you know what? This was the biggest waste of anything. Give me my money. In fact, those people start doing chargebacks. Those people start reporting fraud and all the other stuff because, oh, I spent $10. They didn't answer my email. In fact, I don't even need to email. I'm just going to call my bank and get my $10 back. Fraud, chargeback, chargeback. And then you know what happens to our merchant accounts? They look like Swiss cheese. So there is a method to the madness. Anyone that looks at RHINO and says, oh, they've been around this long and they haven't grown to XYZ, you're missing the point. We never intended to grow to XYZ. We want to make sure this is correct. And then I want to put my face out there, look people in the eye, shake hands, kiss babies, and say, I would tell you the same thing I would tell my own mother. Get in. And that's where we're at. That was a lot more passionate than I was planning on today to be, but that's okay. Passion is a good thing. So that's TED. I hope to have an email out tonight sharing that we're good and we're going. If it means it's tomorrow, please rewind this call a little bit. As it pertains to RHINO businesses, again, I believe a lot of those reoccurring started coming in last week. If anyone is like, hey, Ant, I get it, but I still, bonus me a week or something, just email me and I'll move the next payment out. Otherwise, leave it alone. And then when we get to a later date where we start high-fiving because things went well, oh yeah, Ant, by the way, remember like when RHINO business was late? I never asked you to bonus it, but now I want it. So if you could do me a favor and refund those 2 weeks at the price of RHINO during those 2 weeks and send it to my wallet, I think that would be fair. In which case I'm saying that out loud now. I will do that. I think that's remarkably fair. In fact, anyone that is paying RHINO business as of now, and obviously RHINO business isn't out yet, just know that when we get to that later date, you would have actually been buying RHINO at the price that it was that day. And there'll be a little math on our end, but we can do math. I promise you I'm pretty good at math. So that's that. I'm unavailable tomorrow because I am a total terrible criminal and I'm in criminal court tomorrow on the charge of harassment. It starts at 8 a.m. I probably will be there till 12 because I don't think the judge actually comes out till 9 or 9:30. And I think if I share any more details, I'm not allowed to. What I can tell you that actually is factually correct is that not only has municipal court asked me if I wanted to drop it, but my wife's lawyer has asked me if I want to drop it on 3 separate occasions, because although it's cool to charge things, what's less cool is when you realize that what you charge someone of, the only way they can be found not guilty is by proving that you were guilty. And if you charge someone for something that you're actually guilty of, it's not going to work out well. So I have to be responsible and I have to make sure that I'm prepared, but I want that. Like, I'm not dropping that. If you make a mistake, do not expect me to absolve you of your mistake. You made a lot of mistakes and you deserve a little bit of medicine. And I hope tomorrow is the first dose. So I am going to court and I'm excited for it. But again, I have to prepare. So I have that tomorrow morning. I should be back and doing things by 12 o'clock. But again, I also start at 4 o'clock. In fact, Andy, who is a different zip code, will attest that you could text me at 4 in the morning and I'm writing back. So that's that. So I think everything else is good. I'm gonna run. I think everything's good. I wanna get this video up because I do think it was really good talk. I wanna get my RHINO Welt, yeah, very true. I wanna get my RHINO Welt call up because that was also a really good call. I have a meeting with our team at 12 o'clock, which is RHINO. Like, we're going to find out a lot of things at 12 o'clock today. And then the rest of the day is preparing. So I think that's everything. Okay. Love y'all. And everything is great. That also sounds like Ant. You always just say that. I don't know how to express it. I'm like, for instance, there's certain things in life where you go about your day and then you start thinking about doing stuff. And those things you think about doing, you never would have thought of doing. But because you feel because you feel like you're in a good place, you all of a sudden start thinking about doing for others. And that's one of, and I know I'm being really, really vague, but it's behavior like that. For instance, you know, a poor relationship I might have in my life, someone I may have not spoken to, right? All of a sudden, you find yourself thinking about, you know what, I really kind of want to reach out to them and just say, you know, I accept your apology. And although that's a good statement, like you would say to yourself, well, Ant, that's a good thing, you should do it. Those thoughts only materialize when you feel like you're in such a good place that you finally have room in your heart to reach out to someone that may not have deserved it, but you want to bless. And the point of me saying this is for those that understand what I'm saying, then you understand when I say the following: we're in a really good place because those are the thoughts that I'm having. So if you know it, you know it. If not, then that's okay too. So love you all, and I will see you not tomorrow, but I'll see you the next day. Bye. Maybe I can press this button.